As I'm obliged to say at the top of the show, good morning, league fans. Unless, of course, you're in the Southern Hemisphere, in which case it's drive time. So drive safely and have a good evening. Look forward to dinner, whatever. But for those of us in the UK, it is indeed the morning. And, there's a lot happening in rugby league. And that's what we plan to talk about on this program every non-game day. That being a non-game day in when there's no match in the southern or northern hemispheres. And today you really can't go past Jared Hayne being released from jail, his rape conviction overturned as the biggest story that happened overnight. Apparently the decision of the courts was based around some social media posts. It's beyond the remit of a humble sports show like this to go into that, but it's certainly a massive story. Closer to home, last night I was lucky enough to go to the Everyman Cinemas at Borough Markets to see a screening of the new Sam Tompkins film, the documentary about his final season, Tompkins: The Last Chance, and just a massive round of applause to the filmmaker Joe Gardner there. I can't recall seeing a rugby league documentary that has higher production values. The use of drones and the multiple angles. I mean, the editing for this thing would have been incredible. And, as far as the amount of time, hours that went into it. And not only that, though, the storytelling is just superior as far as it's not just a sports documentary. I mean, Sam started wearing, I guess, with 8 rounds left, maybe 8 weeks left in the season, started wearing a mic. I'd love to see a list. If you're going to write one of those list stories for online, you would write, 10 great Sam Tompkins sledges. It's no holds barred as far as language is concerned, but there's also some really, really nice stuff from his kids, really funny stuff from his kids. He's mic'd up, walking along the beach and being in the vineyard where he's. I think he's going to focus in the Perpignan area. Look, it really is a wonderful, wonderful documentary, and Joe Gardner had a few things to say about the future of the documentary and other projects, which I think is pretty newsworthy, and I'm going to try to, a bit later in the program, grab that audio. Some other news kicking around, Matty Pete being in the running for the Eels job, which is interesting. Keith Mason, who is running for government, running for a public office, the former St Helens and Melbourne Storm player. He was removed from that because of anti-Islamic bigotry, things that he'd said on social media sort of come back to haunt him. Obviously, the State of Origin selections coming up. We've got NRL tomorrow with a big game between the Sharks and the Dolphins, which this time tomorrow we'll be bringing you some updates and coverage. So there's plenty happening in the world of rugby league. Rugbyleague.com. Just a word on that before we go to the break. Basically, we started off with a whole heap of podcasts being played out as live, and it was super time consuming to cut them all up. The system that we've got here is built around music, and so a decision was taken to alter the format a little bit, and we'll still actually pick the eyes out of some of the great podcasts that we've formed partnerships with, and those podcasts will live on our website, rugbyleague.com, which is the number one URL in the sport. I don't think, there isn't a better one, is there? Maybe no, there isn't. That's the name of the sport. So things have changed a little bit in the format now, where we're playing the music and we're focusing on our own content between songs and picking, the eyes out of some of the podcasts and some of the things that people say as far as the partnerships have already formed. So a little bit more about that as the program goes on. But I'll talk a little bit more after the break about this film, Sam Tompkins, The Last Chance, and play you some audio from last night's Q&A. It might be a bit ropey, the quality of the audio, but I think the thing we're going to talk about next is newsworthy. It's newsworthy. So welcome to the first ever episode of Good Morning League Fans. Back shortly. Welcome back to Good Morning League Fans. My name is Steve Mascott. This is the first ever episode of the show. And at least I've got some material to talk about, right? Because last night I went to Bury Yards to the Everyman Cinema and saw a screening of Tompkins' The Last Chance, which is a documentary about Sam Tompkins' final year as a player. And now, I'm a journalist, right? So it's my job to know what's new and what isn't new. That's where the word news comes from. I think this is new, or what you're about to hear. Maybe some fans were aware about this. I don't want to confuse everyone by saying new several times every sentence. But maybe some fans were aware of this. It was news to me. This is the maker. Some of it is definitely new, right? The second half of it is definitely new. I think the first half of it is as well. This is some sort of dodgy audio a little bit, I think, but it was it was set in a public forum. It was a Q&A after the film, and this is the creator of Tompkins: The Last Chance, Joe Gardner.
Well, we're so luckily enough, off the back of this, had a chat with Chris Rodlinski in December, the Wigan CEO, and he got us in to film for the full season. So we're doing an all or nothing style show with them. Luckily, they've won 2 trophies already, including becoming world champions in the Challenge Cup holds at the weekend. So we've.
But that'll be rubbish.
Yeah. So we've struck lucky there.
What percentage of the coverage from the bus back on Saturday can you actually use?
I can't remember much of it. Can you, Miles? No.
Miles only had one eye. Never mind.
Yeah, but no. So that's next. So we're basically, and we're very confident that film will be an incredible piece of television, just because of the human interest and the sporting side of things. And Wigan are a great club. Sorry, Sam. So yeah, that's what we're working on at the moment. We can announce as well that today we signed a deal for this film to be on network television from October the 1st. So that's incredibly exciting for us to have it there, available for 2 years on this network channel. Yeah, it's fantastic for the sport. I mean, if we'd have said when we were initially talking about the film what you would do in that season, what we could make, and the fact that it would be on network television would have been top of the agenda, really, wouldn't it?
Well, there you go. 2 pieces of bona fide news there, I think. There's been a film crew following Wigan around all year, including their World Club Challenge victory over Penrith, and there'll be a documentary about their season. I think All or Nothing is a reference to a soccer documentary. The other voices you heard in there, by the way, was Dan Cherwa from IMG and Sam Tompkins, who was on stage with them talking about the film. So that's amazing. There's going to be a film about Wigan. And secondly, that this film, which I saw last night, and I couldn't recommend more highly, as far as production value, storytelling, all that sort of stuff, is going to be on a network, whether that's the BBC or Netflix or something, I don't know, for the next 2 years. So that deal was only signed yesterday. So not a bad start for Good Morning League fans, with a couple of little scoops there. Not a scoop if you were actually there last night at Bury Yards watching this premiere, but definitely news to the rest of us, I guess, the rest of you. So anyway, we will continue with Good Morning League fans after the break. Welcome back to Good Morning League fans. Now, just because we're not playing out these podcasts on the channel anymore doesn't mean, as I said earlier, that the relationships are over or that we don't want to highlight the work of some of the creators who put together these shows. And one of the best rugby league shows, I include shows, right, not just podcasts, in the world, is Fire Up with Chris Gale and Brett Oden. If you've never heard it, it's not parody. It's comedy. You make up your own mind what it is. But it is certainly a sideways look at the game, and I guess the minutiae, which is their word, not mine, that they examine is also an indication, if you're an outsider, about how big rugby league is in Australia. That there are all these reference points, obscure reference points that a very big audience is aware of, which is something that we don't have in the UK. So here is Brett and Chris talking about the fiasco that was the State of Origin national anthem.
And then, of course, the national anthem, Chris.
Well, let's hear it.
Ladies and gentlemen, to honor America, will you please rise for our national anthem, sung tonight by Springfield's rhythm and blues sensation, Bleeding Gums Murphy.
Oh, say, can you, I'm asking, can you see by the dawn and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting, suited all, popping way up in there. And the home of the brave.
Dylan Wright absolutely nailing it out there at Homebush Olympic Centre there. Chris, I've never heard such extraordinary singing and ad-libbing.
It was absolutely fantastic. And if you have seen the replay like I have, Stephen, as you see the camera pan across the players, just in sync with him the whole way.
Were that the whole way?
The
They knew
scatting, the
every-
b-botting, the register changes.
Every bit of scat singing that Ella Fitzgerald would have been proud of. I mean, it was just amazing.
Except for
wasn't
one person, Jake Travojevic. He seemed confused.
it? He was lost.
He's a little bit lost
And he got
before
more
the
lost.
game.
Got more lost. No. Look, I get the impression that there was some sort of an American influence, perhaps, and I'm thinking maybe Beyonce.
Well, I can tell you this tradition is still going very much healthily and strong as the NBA Finals are on right now. And Game 2 yesterday in Boston versus the Dallas Mavericks, the American national anthem was yet again elongated and stretched within a centimetre of its
But
life.
you can feel the effect of Cowboy Carter.
Yeah, I think Dylan Wright is the Australian Beyonce.
Right, okay.
And I think he nailed his colours to the mast in a rousing performance. And I think that means we've established a tradition where I'll never actually have to sing along with the anthem ever again because I won't be able to.
You can catch Fire Up via our website, rugbyleague.com, as if you can't remember that address, and just hit the podcast tab at the top of the page. You're on Good Morning League fans on rugbyleague.com. One of my favourite little kind of mental, internal exercises is to compare the music industry with the sports industry and how they're different and how they're the same and kind of what they could learn from each other. And the maxim generally is that while a big rock band or pop act can outdraw a sports team when they come to town, the same pop or rock act would commercially fall flat on their face pretty quickly if they had to play the same town 2 weeks later, as your local sports team has to do. And it speaks to the kind of different attractions of sports and other entertainment, musical entertainment, in that sport has this uncertainty to it and this tribalism where the teams represent an area, whereas the entertainment, it purely is just that. It has to hold your attention and hit a few neural pathways and get you feeling good, and it doesn't have the same effect the next time. So what about the biggest musical act in the world? how would they compare to a sports team with a rabid local following where people are willing to go and watch them every week, every second week, because they're not sure what's going to happen? So I tweeted this and I put it on Facebook too. I said, is your local pro sports team bigger in your market than Taylor Swift? Ask yourself this. If Taylor Swift played the same stadium every second week for 7 months, would she draw more people than the pro sports team? In most cases, a pro sports team wins. I guess there's no question, right, that if AC/DC played Accor Stadium every second week, their crowds would diminish pretty quickly, and that eventually, Parramatta would probably draw more people after a 7-month period. I don't think there's any question of that. You might disagree with that. But Taylor Swift is a phenomenon, like a cultural phenomenon, not just a music act. So it was just an interesting question to put out there. John Paul Basile, who's involved in both industries and lives in Los Angeles, he said, I think she would, to be honest, especially if the ticket prices were comparable and not 10 or 20 times more for Taylor Swift. Matt Kennedy, a friend of mine, lives in Melbourne. $27 for adults and $5 for kids. I reckon they'd end up naming the stadium after her, and we have to fight off Swifties flooding into Melbourne for the entire season. Andrew Benson, if your local pro sports team did a world tour, would they have Taylor Swift level ticket sales? I think in most cases Taylor Swift wins. Andrew, that's kind of being a smart ass and actually illustrates my point. It doesn't disprove my point. It's talking about here is the strength of sport. And here is the strength of a globally successful musical act. Brendan Smith says, sorry, mate, Taylor wins this every time. Rob Stone said, if Taylor started dating one of your stars of your team, you might have a chance. Paul Bush, at least you can't gamble on a Tay-Tay gig. I wonder when we will have AI sports teams like the fake horse racing people bet on. It's all about the gambling these days, meh. And it is, and that is true. And what's more, playing body contact sport is dangerous. Whereas if you're a binary code or a non-binary code in a computer, no one gets hurt, no one gets a head knock, no one gets a CTE. Paul Bennett, she certainly beats every single rugby league team on earth. And Dave Kaepernick said yep to something. Anyway, I don't know. I don't know what he's saying yes to, but no, interesting. It's very interesting, and I think one thing that before we go to the break, one thing that musical acts are learning from sports is the immediacy of promoting concerts and covering concerts the way we cover sports, where the set list becomes a big deal, and live photos become so important. Whereas I think the promotional teams around musical acts were a bit slack in that regard before, but they're discovering that you've got to create this immediacy to draw people in and engage people. But yeah, I think Taylor Swift is probably the exception that maybe proves the rule, that she's just so big that she would, over the course of a season, outdraw most pro sports teams. Welcome back to Good Morning League fans. And one of the things that people have been saying in the aftermath of the Challenge Cup final on Saturday has been that, the game is not doing anything to grow the fan base. And they're just trying, we hear it quite often. The sport in the UK is just trying to squeeze more juice out of this one orange. And you would think with IMG being involved that they wouldn't sit on their hands and they wouldn't allow this to continue to be the case, if in fact it is true. I'm sure there's an element of truth to it. So before the Sam Tompkins film last night, there was a round table or town hall, whatever you want to call it, a panel with people from IMG. One of them was Matt Dwyer, who you've heard from previously, but I thought the most interesting comments and revelations and explanation was from a fellow called Simon Lincoln, who's from Endeavour Analytics. And he talked about how analytics and stats and demographics are being used to grow the rugby league fan base and where these potential new fans are and who these potential new fans are. So once more, excuse the quality of the audio. But here is what he had to say. Simon Lincoln from IMG's Endeavour Analytics.
Sure. I just sort of add to you with this project is my life for 2.5 years. I remember at the end of COVID going to Stockley and sort of having to socially distance and talk to the rugby league. So it's been a long time coming and a long process for us all. In terms of the work we've done, we supported Matt very early on with what we call a fan pulse, and we wanted to get a read on how fans feel about the game. And what came back very strongly is the passion that the fans have for the sport, how important these clubs were in the communities that they're based, and the need for investment and the need for sort of stability. And a lot of these themes that were coming back were some of the bedrock that gave us the realisation that actually we need to make more than just promotion and relegation through points, and that's where some of the grading ideas come from. And I always tell this story. My wife's from Warrington, so by association I'm a Warrington Wolves fan. And if you take the Wire out of Warrington, you're left with half of the town supporting Man United and the other half of the town supporting Everton and Liverpool. It is really the identity of the town. We'll park what happened on Saturday. Worst performance of the season, I'm rightly told. The other thing that we found from the fans was they really understood the need to grow the sport, move out of the heartland. They were very positive about internationalisation of the sport, the teams in France. So we had a lot of runway and I think support from the fans to make some change and to implement some of the ideas that we had. So that was sort of the first stage that we went through, and then as Bindi said, we really wanted to understand what opportunities the sport had. And we did a very large piece of work which we call an audience segmentation. So we're looking to take the entirety of the UK population and try and segment them into opportunities and those that aren't opportunities. And whenever you do a segmentation, you'll find there's a very large part of the population just aren't a segment that you can go after because they're just not into sport, they're not into ball sports, but you size that and you just take them out of the equation. And we came up with 3 opportunity audiences, and each one has slightly different characteristics. But what we also found is they were dotted around the whole country, so there was opportunities for rugby league almost everywhere in the country. And the 3 audiences came up with discovery fans. They already knew rugby league, they already had positive associations with the sport. The door's slightly ajar, we just had to push through. We had to find the way to connect with them and connect them to the sport through events, through content, through localisation. Then we had 2 sort of fan groups that weren't connected to the sport yet. Probably one that I'm part of, which is sort of a social sports fan, a family man. So again, I'm open to watching ball sports, but my share of wallet, my share of mind is challenged with other sports. So I've got to find a way to really connect and bring those people in. And then the last group was what we called entertainment seekers. They're young, they're based in urban cities, so there's a lot around Birmingham and London, as you'd expect, and they just want to spend their money on entertainment. And the characteristics of rugby league, the big hits, the fast pace, the product over the white line was really attractive to them in terms of what it stood for and the entertainment factor. But again, converting them when they could go to the cinema, or they could go to a football match, or they could go to Nando's on a Saturday night was always going to be a challenge.
So there you go. Something is being done. It's not to say they're going to be successful, but a lot of work is actually going into growing the fan base of rugby league in the UK. That is the end of the first ever episode of Good Morning League Fans. I hope you enjoyed it. Tune in again tomorrow. We've got a match to preview, and who knows what guests we might have. I did speak to Matt Dwyer last night about coming on and going on the record and answering questions, and maybe answering some of your questions as well. But enjoy your rugby league, enjoy the weekend, and thanks for supporting the early weeks of rugbyleague.com. Huge news in British Rugby League today, with Salford Chief Executive Ian Blease leaving the club to take over as the sporting director at Leeds Rhinos. Here is Leeds' Gary Hetherington at a media conference today explaining the appointment.
The role required someone who's got expertise in all sections of our industry. Someone with a successful track record. Someone with outstanding personal skills. Someone who could make decisions. And someone who's got some financial acumen as well to be able to manage a rugby league budget.
While Blease had been portrayed as having been headhunted by the Rhinos, Hetherington indicated that he had in fact applied for the job.
We had quite a number of high quality applicants, but I'm delighted that the chosen one is Ian Blease. And I would like to thank the Salford Club and their chairman in particular, Paul King, on being very approachable and understanding and enabling this appointment to go ahead.
Blease was asked at the media conference what attracted him to the role.
Yeah, I think ever since I was a player, it's a huge club. I'm not saying Salford isn't, but there's levels within Super League and Leeds has always been a significant club that I've admired from afar. Obviously, I don't know too much under the skin of it yet, but I will do. But as soon as we spoke to Gary and made my intentions clear that I wanted to come, it was a no-brainer for me. It was a big decision for me and my family, obviously. Obviously been at Salford over 20 years as a player and administrator, but so excited to come here now. Really, really excited about it. Obviously, it's a sustainable club. It's no excuse. It's no. Everybody knows we've had to sell players at Salford over the last few years. From virtually my first year that I was there, I think I sold Benny Murdoch in that first year, which sort of like takes its toll eventually over the years. Rebuilding teams, I know Gary and the staff have got a great setup here already. So it's here for me to build more on. I've got the backing of the board and Gary and Paul Caddick. I'm really looking forward to it. So I'll yet to see what I uncover, but I don't think there's anything drastic in terms of the club that I'll come and need to shake up straight away. But I'll have a close look at everything, obviously.
Predictably, Blease was asked about the position of the under-pressure coach at Leeds, Rowan Smith.
I've known Rowan for a while, actually, because when I was a player agent, I dealt with him while I think he was at Bradford. Cheers. So I think it's unfair for me to comment yet because I'm not officially started as an employee till next Monday. And Rowan's doing a job. Head coach is a tough job. He's doing a job. He's doing it the best of his ability, I'm sure he is. So I'll support him on that.
Blease was then asked whether Salford's coach, Paul Rowley, might actually be headed across to Yorkshire.
Yeah, that's for you guys to write. Obviously, I've had a great relationship with Paul. He's a great coach, and so was Ian Watson before, and even Richard Marshall, who I work with. I have great relationships with the people who I work with. I will always keep them relationships healthy, but it's not about speculation today. It's about getting my feet under the table at the club and enjoying it now.
Hetherington then did his best to provide the afternoon's best quote when he talked about
fans of the game who want to see a real level playing field, and we want to be a bit more level than everybody else.
For RugbyLeague.com, this is Steve Mascord reporting.